down that show, you know, that was that they put on. That's the first one they put on down New York's
at that
Film
New York Film Academy. Yeah, he's starting this foundation.
Yeah, God, there ought to be a lot of venues for independent and new, you know, real good film. There should be a lot more than that, and just the Hollywood stuff.
Are they around?
No.
No,
well,
there's
going to be more. I think there's more with all this. Like you said, your son is it? It was doing Avid or.
Well, yeah, but that's selling equipment.
Yeah.
And,
well, no, but it's
great equipment. We should get together.
Yeah. Welcome very much to Conversation. Pleasure to welcome to the program Ira Cohen. Ira's a poet and a filmmaker, and we've got clips from a film, an incredible film that he had made when he in India called Kings with Straw Mats, which we're going to show clips of and so forth. But there's a great deal more involved in his life and so forth. And Ira, really welcome very much to Conversations and into Manhattan Network.
So I'm the 1,301st person?
Well, 1,630th or so.
Oh, 630,
you know, yeah, right,
okay.
Yeah, you've been sitting in this chair.
Waiting
anyway,
for a long time to come.
Welcome to a poet, you know, a real poet. Anyway, so how about your background? We were just sort of chatting as this thing started that this equipment is one of the things, and it's important because the video or film equipment is getting more and more accessible to folks, so maybe more and more folks will be able to start making good films, and there might be some really important creative stuff going on there. But what about your own background? You're from New York, and maybe you could share some of that.
It would be wonderful if more and more equipment would make more and more good things, but when you think how many people have video cameras and how many people have cameras and how long they've had them, and how few great photographers and filmmakers there are.
That may be that we're all caught up with the idea that if it isn't Hollywood, it isn't worthwhile, and maybe people have the wrong idea, like the film that, you made that film yourself, and, Kings with Straw Mats, you just did it out of a thing of love, and,
that's the main
that's where
thing.
a lot of good stuff can come from, but anyway, how about your background? Are you from New York originally?
Yeah, I'm originally from New York. I was born in the Bronx. Shakespeare Avenue, I think, is where my parents were living.
Right.
Which is, I like the idea.
Yes, that's nice.
Then they moved to Gun Hill Road, makes me feel a little more down and everything.
Sort of a catching name,
and then Girard Avenue and somewhere near the Marsania Hospital, Yankee Stadium.
Right.
And all of that. Cascade swimming pool. And actually, I'm very much a New Yorker, and as a matter, although I've traveled everywhere, as you know, and lived for many years in Morocco and India, and traveled to Ethiopia, and of course to Europe. My cousin is actually Ed Koch, which is interesting enough. I don't mention that too often. I don't know when it might get me into trouble. It's not as if, but we are closely related. And so I'm right at home in New York.
Yeah, I've been a poet right along, right? And you knew all some of the great poets that were.
Yeah, I've known a lot of the people of my time,
Alan
and even had some contact as a kid with Jackie Robinson's baseball cap.
Really?
Which I tried to snatch off his head.
You did?
Yeah,
Good for
as a
you.
young kid. They chased me up there, and I got the hat. But
you got the hat, but
they got the hat back. They didn't throw me out of the ball game. Thank you.
What was Jackie's attitude toward you?
Oh, he was very
You could take it right off his hat.
He was
It was cool with him. It was just the authority.
Well, no, he didn't. I don't know. He probably didn't like it, especially, but.
But it's no big deal, right? Yeah. I'm in the part of the people.
No, I saw Babe Ruth on 86th Street and Broadway and said, "Hiya, Babe." You know, he had a. So hi, kid.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
He was at his, and whatever. So you come across people all over the world of every type.
Yeah. Right.
And as far as the Beat Generation and through traveling and living in Morocco, Paul Bowles, William Burroughs were people I know.
You were there when Burroughs
Brian
was there,
Geisman,
right?
Yeah, sure.
You were there, would that have been the Naked Lunch days?
Well, that's after I was carrying a copy of Naked Lunch.
Yeah, right.
And I came there, and I'd read Paul Bowles a lot, so when I took a Yugoslavian freighter for $90, which dropped me at Tangier, I was making a historic trip. I made that trip twice, and then I didn't know, of course, but later on when I read about Kerouac, I see he also took that boat.
Really, the same boat?
Yeah.
The same line. You used to be able to do that in those days. Yeah, it's good. It's there, and then Tangiers was quite a place. I mean, it was...
they were always talking about the good old days when it was a free port, and there were a lot of fur coats and money changing, and everything was happening in the great Saco Chico. And in the time I was there, it was its own great time because it was more like... Samuel Beckett slapstick time in the Saco Chico, which was good for me.
Samuel Beckett slapstick time. That's good.
I mean, there weren't all of those, fur coats and other international,
sort of
beauty queens and whatever.
Sort of authentic and real. Yeah, right. With the artists, artists often find something like that, and then
it was a good downtime.
Yeah.
But it was good for me, and I had beautiful houses for $5 and $10 a month in Medina.
Yeah, right.
Stained glass windows,
and all this beauty,
tiled
and
walls and floors, maybe not running water, but even that came around.
And one of the best things, you have something like that, like I was in Libya, and you get 2,000 kilometers of beautiful Mediterranean coastline and not an American tourist in sight. It was wonderful.
Well, we had a little enclave at that time. There was a little beatnik. They called us picnics.
Picnics?
Picnics, enclave.
What time are you talking? What years now?
61 to 66.
Okay, yeah, right. It was a happy time. Interesting place to be.
And then when I ended up coming back to New York for a few years, in which I started working in films with Jack Smith and started taking photographs because I'm a photographer more than a filmmaker.
You started in photography?
Yeah. It took me a long time before I ever made a film or a video.
Right.
And it's not my first prerogative, although...
You like the still photography?
Well, you can take, because I can take a picture, and then I could take a picture of you now while we're sitting here.
I'll pose. You want me to pose or not?
No, don't pose
I did a thing once
unless
with
you
a
have
video
a good
camera.
pose.
I once did
Hold your hands up like that.
I once did a video camera.
No, hey, like this, sort of. Yeah, like that. That's good. There you go.
Okay, now for posterity. That's the Akashic record, right?
That's right.
That's in the Akashic record. In case, well, that's in case we missed it in the Akashic record.
Well, it can't be missed in the Akashic record. You may not be able to pick it up,
Yeah, right. Yeah, we had a mutual friend, Ray Bremser, huh?
Yeah, Ray Bremser. I didn't know him very well, but I loved him. I printed a long poem of his about going up the Amazon in a magazine called Great Society. I think it was 68.
Yeah.
And his spirit was always very special.
Great spirit. And the Blues for Bonnie was great. Yeah. I think he wrote that with a little nubbin of pencil under difficult situations and so forth. Sure. But it was there, and then you were there for a long while. You knew them. You knew these people. You knew Alan, of course. And,
well, I mean, I'd have different relationships with different people. Jack Micheline was a great soul who passed on last year, close to the time of Bremser. In fact, I have a wonderful picture of Bremser and Micheline together.
God, I'd love to see it.
Which was just published in a magazine called Nexus that comes out of Wright State University.
Right.
It was a jazz issue. I had Spike Lee and Miles Davis at a Knick game, and Charles Linton, who was a big singer in the 30s, so he used to still come till he was in his 90s and died last year. He passed on right after Doc Cheatham, and I have them both together in a photograph. So it's a nice mixed thing. Jack DeJournette and Ornette, who is a good friend of mine.
Ornette Bowman, God bless him.
Yeah, you live in Ornette's building.
Yeah,
we're
good friends. Yeah. Ornette's he's funny, and really creative and really innovative. Really innovative.
He's a great musician, and he's a beautiful guy.
Yeah, really beautiful. They were beautiful. Those guys were, beautiful. Are those that are? Unfortunately,
in the Akashic record, we have no tent. No, I don't know.
All right, good enough. Well said. You were before the beatnik transmogrified into this great big hippie.
Well, look, I went to a prep school.
That's where it all came from.
I came from 93rd Street, man on 92nd, 93rd Street. I went to, school there, PS 93, Joan of Arc, Sharet Tzedek, which was a Hebrew school, all on that block. Yeah. And eventually, I ended up going to Horace Mann. Yeah. And after that, I went to Cornell for a little while, and then switched to Columbia in General Studies, and finally, at some point, I decided to take a boat to Tangier, that famous Yugoslavian.
Writing all the time? You were writing all the time?
I was reading a lot.
Reading
a lot, fooling around, smoking, and doing other things. Yeah. But when I went to Tangier, that was my baptism, I would say.
That was your first outing from New York?
Yes.
Okay, what a place to land, because that's really exotic. In a different kind of place.
It was so exotic, I felt right at home.
Right, okay. And you were there, you weren't there like a weekend visitor, you were there for a long time.
Well, I stayed for a little while, certain things happened, then I left, came back, then I said, what am I doing back here? And then I got on another Yugoslavian freighter as soon as I got the $90.
You seem to have this
plus $100. Well, I went twice because
Yugoslavian freighters were particularly good for the Mediterranean.
Right.
Yeah.
It was called the Ravatska.
Ravatska was the name of the ship?
H-R-A-V-A-T-S-K.
That was the ship?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
And the first thing I saw when I got off the boat was amazing in Casablanca, was that there was an enormous pile of crates that's where the boat comes in. Right. They're unloading things, and all these crates were still nailed shut, except for the one on the top of what was a pyramid of crates, veritably. Right. And there was a Moroccan up on the top of that opened up crate, and what the crates were full of were Western-style toilets.
Really?
Yes, which they didn't use in the, they have them,
but on the floor,
but it isn't the typical traditional Moroccan thing. So, but that's what was in these crates, and he was squatting on top of the top toilet on the out of the top box on the pyramid of toilets.
Trying it out.
And
yeah.
of course, nothing was connected to anything,
Yes,
and
right.
I don't know what he was doing when he was squatting there. I wasn't checking it out that closely, but what a surreal image.
Yeah, yeah. But you were doing were you doing photography then in those days?
No, I started taking photographs after I met Jack Smith. Actually.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, he was an inspiration, and
yeah, Jack was the greatest.
yeah, the millennia or the you know that place.
I would say he
Second
was the
Avenue.
most orchidaceous genius that I've ever met.
Orchidaceous. I don't know
Everyone
the word.
always says.
What is that word? I don't
Well,
know.
hey, you can figure it out.
Okay,
I mean, you know.
he was orchidaceous, bodacious,
Yeah.
a bodaciously orchidaceous
Right.
fellow, right? Right, all right,
Yeah.
that was good.
I
yeah.
mean, exotic
yeah, all right,
and
yeah. I never had the pleasure, you know.
beautifully rare and
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah, yeah. My friend named his kid after him, you know,
Really?
Smitty. He always called him Smitty. It was after Jack Smith. Yeah,
Right.
and then I knew Walter Gutman. He did that Kerouac film.
Yeah, I
Pull
remember, and
My
he also
Daisy.
was did a film of people in the circus. I think that was interesting.
Yeah, these filmmakers, independent.
Trapeze artists without underwear,
Yeah.
might have been called.
Okay. The filmmakers and everything. We were talking earlier about the filmmakers and the fact that I started this program way back in the Pleistocene, you know, this interview series, and it was Paul Ryan.
Right.
Along, I think it was Namju Pike and so forth. Got one of the first what they called porta-packs off the boat. Japan
So you consider you're a Pleistocene
a Pleistocene
interviewer.
interviewer.
I
right.
always consider I'm a Precambrian.
Oh, people can't. We go way back. The old man with
An
the
ancient soul.
Precambrian, right? An ancient soul, right? Well, you're a poet, a true and honest poet. But the point is, in those days, it used to be in order to do anything, to make anything television or film, because we got this Hollywood, we got the networks, we got this thing. But the camcorders, it became camcorders and so forth. Now we're getting down to where
Well, people were shooting 8mm and 16mm.
But now they're getting down to where they get this digital thing happening.
Yeah.
That's comparable to Beta SP. You know, you get a simple camera, and now they're getting down to Avid Media One and these nonlinear
And this film
editing
that I
systems
made,
that makes it possible. I had a friend of mine who's in the business, and he said he couldn't believe a fellow made a really good film that would have been millions in the old days.
Right.
He was making for a few thousand.
That's
You know,
right.
so I mean, it's getting down in the hands of the folks. If it doesn't get all caught up within the commercialization kind of process.
and
or,
my film was
know.
shot, Kingswood Straw Mats,
Yeah.
in '86 before they had digital cameras.
Yeah.
And it is just a regular 8mm, what they called a
Well, that wasn't-
professional Sony. You know.
Yeah, the 8mm was an advance because it was so compact, so easy to handle and that kind of thing. But it's getting in the hands of the folks. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's great because it opens it up to new people. I think they should drop them with parachutes over Africa
Absolutely,
and Asia.
yeah.
Would be
And
more
and
interesting than this country in a way, because most people in this country use those cameras to do the most silly.
Well, they do,
things.
yeah, but it's all constipated with these commercializations and these kind of commercial values that are so much.
It's good for that. You know,
Materialism is so.
Yeah, the blooper program.
The blooper? What?
Yeah, the bloopers.
Oh,
know,
you mean
or something.
TV bloopers?
Yeah,
Yeah,
stuff like
no,
that.
But
It's
I mean,
good for that.
people, I mean, film, even we're coming into a multimedia age and we're coming out literate in a certain sense, and the thing is that they should be having a chance for people to really express themselves and capture some of the reality that is around us and so forth in ways and make that kind of stuff available more than we have, I guess is what I'm saying is the hope. And one of your films, we want to get to a clip, and you were in Tangier, and then you took one of those boats, Yugoslavia.
Well, that was there.
Was
Then
that a
anyway, I
Yugoslavia
stayed in
boat out of
Morocco
Dubrovnik or
for
something?
no. I stayed. I never went on with it. I mean, I stayed in Morocco for about 4 years.
That's a long
I
time.
published a magazine called GNAOUA after a ritual brotherhood.
Yeah.
You know, Muslim Brotherhood, the GNAOUA.
No, I don't know.
Well, these days, all of that music is being recorded and reviewed in music magazines,
Okay.
unlike the time that I came back
Right.
and did a record of the Jalala,
Yeah.
which is another religious brotherhood taking its name from their patron saint, Mulay Abdul Qadir Jilani.
Yeah.
Brian Geisen turned me on to those musicians.
Yeah, this is in Morocco? You're
Yes,
in,
and
yeah,
then
okay.
they came to my house. I would
Yeah.
invite them to play and
Great.
give them $20 or $30, which went far in those days.
Yes,
and
yeah.
I was doing it because of all those personal reasons.
Yeah.
And I invited Paul Bowles, who was a friend,
Yes.
and Brian Geisen, who had what would be very primitive tape recording equipment.
Yeah.
You know, today,
Yeah, right.
I mean, like the Ewer or the Martel Nothing Stereo or
Yeah,
whatever.
but you see, yeah.
And from those tapes that were made in my house,
Yeah,
that a couple of, not just from one night actually, mainly, there's a Jalala record out now,
There you go.
Baraka Records, of those recordings
Ain't
made
it
in
great
my
we
house.
got the technology? Just think, I mean, there was, there was Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey. There was somebody before Ma Rainey. It's gone. Everything is gone. We don't have any way of capturing
Right.
it. You know, I used to have a record in my attic. We used to have attics in the Midwest. I don't know if you have attics in New York. They have an attic where you put all the stuff.
People,
We found it, and we had a thing was a cylinder, and I found one was a record, and the thing you put it on, it says, "This is a demonstration record of the new Columbia talking machine." I mean, we didn't have those things until recently, and then it's galloping to where the media and things are becoming more and more available to us. But we're going to keep moving in a sense. You started writing, you're taking pictures, and then you were up in Kathmandu for a long time.
Yeah, I lived there for a long time, for most of the 70s.
Yeah, for most of the 70s you were up in the Himalayas, right?
Right.
That must have been a heck of an experience as well.
Well, I mean, in a beautiful way, it was another chapter, and you know, if you start with, you know, this movie Tales of Hoffman.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a film, but it's an opera, really. And then there were short stories by E.T. Hoffman, which give rise to the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's about the journey of the poet and his three loves, you know. And I love this film. I have a copy of it at home. It's one of my favorite films, made by Michael Powell, the great English filmmaker, Emmerich Pressburger, so who made Red Shoes as well. But anyway, there are these different sections of that film of three great loves.
Yeah.
One is, you know, in Venice, another, you know, Coppelia, wherever that was, Stuttgart or someplace, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the last is on an island in Greece.
Yeah.
And I often think of that film when I think of my life in
Your
Tangier.
life, right?
Tangier would be, you know, the one story.
Yeah.
And then Kathmandu and Nepal would be the next big part. New York would have to get worked in. Maybe
Hard to
expand
work
it
New
to
York
5.
into that.
Oh no, I can do it.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. You can do anything you put your mind to. You know, and you knew Julian Beck. And
yes, I knew Julian very well.
Did you
in
do
fact,
theater? Have you done theater?
Well, in some sense, I've done theater in a small way, but I've never,
like
you know, been
performance,
seriously.
art, reading.
Yeah, well, everything is theater. Life is spectacle.
Right. The spectacle. I had a
you know, and of course, something like this Kumbh Mela is the greatest theater in the world.
That's what we want to talk about.
And you know, more and more with you know, certain kind of deconstructions coming out of Guy Debord and other, you know, writers talking about spectacle as you know, and life as theater, and that the whole colonialist involvement in India was one grand spectacular with plumed feathers and horses going through it, and all those Indian. You know,
just needed a ringling
cast of millions.
You just need a ringling to set it into the big tent, right?
You know. And I did a Moroccan
cast
video.
Of billions, or nearly a billion.
I did a Moroccan video in, I think it was '86 or something. I went down with a small camera by myself.
This is an 8mm now.
Yeah, and I shot about 6 hours. Most of it in the Jamalfana in Marrakesh, and it's also really terrific stuff. It needs to be completed as a film.
Right, that's it,
you know, which was the case with the Indian film as well.
One of the heck of it is, even if we have time, we don't have all this time, but we could be tales to be told of your days in Kathmandu. I mean, would have been incredible. We could go on in that.
To me,
but just real quickly, but then we want to go on to this incredible festival and show the clips from the film.
I mean, for me, for example, every photograph for me is like one of those Japanese flowers. You put it, I mean, or little shells, you put it in a glass of water and it opens up. And, you know,
right.
So every photograph leads into a poem or whatever.
Right. But you were in Kathmandu, and it was from maybe without going into detail and that, but that's from there that you heard about this festival that became the basis.
Well, look, if I would say, you know, if I loved movies with George Raft, you know, whatever, Morocco with Gary Cooper and Marlene Dietrich, whatever that kind of exotic influence, the books of Paul Bowles. Finally, I went there, and the whole other thing of Shangri-La and the Himalayas, Ronald Koeman or John Gielgud wearing a Tibetan hat and leading people through the mysteries of those sacred mountains. Well, somehow that was Kathmandu for me. Like, I like to think of it as Shangri-La.
Really?
In some way, when I look back on it, it's like I had that experience, and now I'm back here.
Ain't it great to
have good old New York?
Ain't it great to have had those kind of experiences?
It's not bad to be able to get a sandwich at 4 o'clock in the morning or anything else, because you can do anything in this town. But but being born here and born in the Bronx, I feel that one of the privileges of being a real New Yorker is that I like to say that you're born, if you're born in the Bronx like I was in those years, you're born with the raspberry on your lips. You know what I mean?
Okay, right.
Because you know, I want to go on about how great New York is. I'd rather just give it the raspberry. Because,
I see. Okay.
You know, for all the things it's lacking, which is the real wonderful, you know, things that all these other places offer.
But it's got its own thing. But look, we got to get the film, right? We're going to get the film. You were in Kathmandu and you heard tell of this.
Well, no, I knew about the Kumbh Mela. I heard about it.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so
set it up in a sense.
So it was in 1977 that someone I knew had gone to a Kumbh and was telling me certain things about it, and I decided I wanted to go. So I didn't have any money. He gave me some money. Then I didn't have any film because I had to spend that money for rent and for other things to cover myself when I was away. And I went down there with almost nothing. I managed to get, you know, one roll of film, a Kodak color film in Kathmandu was equivalent to at least 2 weeks' rent, if not longer.
Wow, that is, the rents
if
are low.
if you were buying it, yeah, things were very cheap. I mean, so. But expensive if they were Western
You're talking
products.
Still film?
Yeah, a couple of rolls of color film. I mean, I had
really dear, right? Okay.
Yeah, no, I could live in a hotel for 2 weeks or something on the cost of one roll of film. Almost.
Wow. Yeah.
I might have to really figure it out. I don't want to take the time.
Let's not.
To do that.
It's not our.
But anyway, when I went into this store, knowing I would go there, somebody he wouldn't sell me the film because on credit, and then finally I saw that the boxes of film he had little white termites, like eating through the boxes. Oh, yeah. But the plastic containers were intact. Yeah. I said, "You really going to sell this to somebody?"
Sell that. Yeah,
I said, "You're just showing it to me. I'm ready to run down the street. You're lucky I'm such a tough guy. But if you give it to me, I'll pay you when I come back." And I convinced him, so I went with 20 rolls of film.
And the film was perfectly all right.
Yeah. And the Allahabad Kumbh Mela was incredible. So these melas occur in 4 different places. In India, my favorite is the Allahabad one. I've gone to 3 out of the 4. Yeah. So I went to that Mela. I went to the 81 Mela in Ujjain, which was also great, and took a lot of photographs there, and had great personal experiences, which could take more than the hour to describe one of them.
Problem,
And then in 1986, by this time I was back in New York. I had been living here for a while. I knew that there was going to be a Kumbh Mela in Hardwar, and I began to work myself up to.
That's a town in India, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, right, all right. And they rotate. It's every 12 years or something?
Well, every 12 years in each one of 4 places, which means that actually every 3 years there's a Kumbh Mela in one of these 4 places. And I think it's on the soundtrack in the beginning of the film.
Yeah, we're going to show it.
I don't need to tell it. It will be stated there. But then I went to the 86 Mela.
With an 8mm camera? Or with a video?
First, Sheldon Rockland of Mystic Fire had been constantly encouraging me to make this film, and offered many times to come along, and said if I could get the money that he would come and whatever. And so one thing leading to another, I didn't believe very much in the idea that I could raise this kind of money, but someone said, I was just trying to go there, which I would have needed $2,000 to buy film and to go there for 3 or 4 weeks. I figured.
And Yugoslav freighter?
Well, no, that's Yugoslav freighter doesn't go
I know there weren't any
Himalayas.
Those were the good old days.
They find seashells up on those tops of the mountains. How did they get there?
Yeah, right.
So anyway, no, but to just go there, whatever I thought I needed, I couldn't get, and that was relatively little. And someone said to me, "It's too bad you don't ask the big man," meaning someone that we knew in common that could afford to maybe make a serious donation. He said, "You should tell him that you're making a film." Yeah. And I said, "Oh, well, I'm not making a film."
You're thinking you're a photographer.
Yeah, I'm saying I just want to do it my own way. Yeah. And, so anyway, they mentioned to him that if I had the money, I wanted to make a film. I was raising money.
Yeah, and this 8mm stuff's coming.
And then he called me.
And he says,
and he said, I hear you want to make a film. So I realized why he was saying that. Yeah. So I said, yes, sure. Yeah. So how much do you need? I said, well, $25,000. He said, okay. When do you want it? And well, like that. So I took the first 10, and I ended up, because Sheldon was unable to come in the end because he had so many commitments with his company.
He's busy, I know. He's written.
And if he would have come, he would have only come for a week, and I stayed there for 3 months.
Yeah, all right, you did, in there. Okay,
so well, I bought 2 video cameras, and I brought along my friend, Ira Landgarten, who had not had any experience shooting video, but was technically so adept, I knew that he could master the camera and what you have to do with it in no time. So he shot a lot of it, and I also took a lot of stills, directing it, being in it, getting sunstroke, and finally, in the end, taking about 6 hours of the, over 60 hours that we ended up with.
Right.
But I got a really good hit on the last 6 hours at the end of the festival with certain very delightful scenes myself, so I'm glad I ended up shooting something.
So that, Mr. Wells, is how you got into making movies?
Yeah.
Okay, well listen, we got this film. We've got to show them the time's running out, right? Yeah. So we got this film. We set it up in the studio now, and again, it's called
Kings with Straw Mats. I just want to say, blurbing myself, that I've been trying to get it to people like yourself, and just operating from grassroots,
Right, I
so
hear
to
you,
speak.
yeah. But Mystic
And,
Fire does distribute it.
Yes,
yeah, and
of
we'll
course
give
they
them a number,
distribute
yeah.
it in stores, Tower,
Yeah.
Virgin Atlantic,
Yeah.
whatever, but I just want to say
Then-
that whenever I can get it to somebody that I'm interested in,
Yeah.
like my good friend John Hassel, a great
Yeah.
musician, he gave a copy to Roy Cooter, who's Buena Vista Social Club.
Yeah.
You know, his
Yeah, yeah,
terrific
the film,
film,
yeah.
and right up my alley.
Yeah, it's a
And,
happening world. It's a
and
happening
I'm
world.
just saying
yeah.
that Roy Cooter
Yeah.
loved the film. Other people like that are responding to me on a personal level.
Right.
Well,
Well,
I want to
let's-
get the film out there.
Yeah, let's get it out. So let's set it up, and it's about these sadhus and these
Yes.
people in India that go to extreme lengths in terms of their religious faith, and it's an incredible thing. So we're going to show now, first thing, about 7 minutes or so, the beginning of the film, then we'll come back and show another clip.
Okay, good.
Okay, so let's set that up and run that in the studio now. We're talking with Ira Cohen. The film is Kings with Straw Mats. Could we set that up and run it now then, please? Thank you.
Let's call it Kings with Straw Mats. The Kumbh Mela, a meeting of holy men in India. The first time I ever went to a Kumbh Mela, I was living in Kathmandu, writing poetry and experimenting with astral projection. When I heard that the Kumbh Mela was about to take place in Allahabad, I checked my dervish manual, the poems of Rumi, and it told me to make my way as quickly as possible to the special 12-year meeting of pilgrims and holy men at the confluence of 3 rivers, the Ganges, the Jumna, and the invisible underground Saraswati. Over 12 million people were headed by jet, train, ox cart, or simply on foot, with the object of bathing at the astrologically perfect moment at the point where the 3 rivers met. As soon as I read those words of Rumi which proclaimed, "Stop being a water bearer and immerse yourself in the ocean," I got some color film on credit, no easy task in Nepal, and made travel arrangements for Allahabad, where I arrived with about $20, dreaming of 12 million third eyes opening simultaneously. After all, the place where the 3 rivers met was considered to be the external representation of the third eye itself. The Kumbh Mela takes its name from the Hindu legend, which tells how 4 drops of the gods' holy elixir fell to the earth from a kum or pitcher during a struggle with jealous demons. The places where those 4 drops fell are Allahabad, Hardwar, Ujjain, and Nasik, where the famous festivals are held every 12 years. And what was that elixir, if not that most powerful psychedelic, the fabled soma, which was known by the ancients to confer instant divinity? On my arrival, after literally having to smoke my way through hundreds of naked sadhus covered in ashes, I was fortunate enough to meet Ganesh Baba, India's own Mr. Natural, who immediately transmitted to me by psychedelic bullet all I needed to know and gave me a place to sleep besides. It was Ganesh who said someone should write a book called Kings with Straw Mats. It would be impossible to estimate how many tons of ganja and charas were smoked during the month-long festival. The Samadhiwala, who was about to have himself buried alive for a period of 5 days without food or water, sings out to me, "Only the Almighty can look after a yogi." Apart from all the drugs used to induce ecstasy and vision, some of the highest yogis and fakirs had their own time-honored ascetic techniques for getting even higher through meditation and the practice of austerities. In search of mystic union with reality and the acquisition of special powers, they defied all ideas of human endurance, like the Karishwaris or standing lords, standing on one leg for 12 years or more, even sleeping while standing with the aid of a hanging swing. Others, known as ekbahus, or one-arms, hold their arms up for similar periods of time until the arm shrivels into a permanent upright position and the fingernails grow right into the flesh.
Wow, that's really something. That's really, what is these sadhus, and so maybe you could share a little bit with us.
Oh, sure.
They're going through this, it's a sort of it's a spiritual thing.
Well, look,
and
first of all, this is
through
Kumbh Mela is a meeting of over 10 million people are showing up there, and a lot of them.
10 million?
Yeah, a
Holy
lot of those are.
mackerel.
Those are that is
Yeah.
holy.
Yeah, I know that.
And,
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
And the sadhus who come, which is, I mean,
Sadhu is?
sadhu is holy man.
Okay,
you could say.
yeah, right.
And they comprise a good number. They're the backbone of the whole thing, and
Yeah.
it's their initiations and other practices, you know, and their meetings, you know.
Now, these practices that they're showing, the man standing on a foot for decades,
yeah, so
or
those are
something,
certain
or the
austerity,
hand looked like
yeah.
an eagle's talon.
Yeah.
And I mean, they go through this sort of thing, and it's an old
Not everyone is doing these certain things that you're seeing. I'm
Yeah.
picking them out because
Because
they
they're
are
dramatic,
unusual.
yeah.
And so, but out of all of these sadhus, there are a few
Yeah, they do these
that
things.
are standing lords. They call
Yeah,
them Karishwaris.
uh-huh.
And I don't want to have to remind you of Simon Stylites sitting on a column, you know, of you know, in terms of the Western Christian
Yeah,
tradition,
right.
as it was commonly perceived, that had all kinds of people
Or
doing special things to prove their devotion, their faith, or empower themselves.
And it also affects their consciousness?
Well,
Flagellation or
theoretically, I
something? Would
mean,
you
no,
get
that's
into
not,
a
they're
certain-
not so into flagellation,
It's not
really.
It's not, I was thinking of medieval
No,
flagellation.
there are
and things
there are more Muslims and also some, you know, Hindus that pull carts with hooks in their skin, which I've never seen personally, but
Yeah.
you know, or can hang from trees and things like that. But these practices are not quite like that, and but they do take enormous stamina
Yeah.
and courage to stay on one leg, or you know, holding the arm up.
Yeah.
I think is a less difficult feat, Frank, because it must be atrophied into that position.
Yeah, it must be, I mean, it's...
I don't know how it's done, but my guess would be that, well, I don't want to give secrets which I haven't been revealed to me, but
Yeah.
I try to figure things out in
Yeah,
life.
right.
You know, about anything, you know,
Right.
rather than just take other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And I can figure out how that could be accomplished. But standing on one leg and even sleeping with the aid of a hanging swing,
Yeah.
that's something that requires a lot of stamina.
Well,
So
I would
you-
think it's...
that, you know, so you see one standing lord there, and also the man with his nails holding his arm up.
Yeah.
Just to give a little minor point about it, but which is very interesting, is that in his hand there is something in that hand.
What?
It's not the picture of his mother, you know,
Yeah.
or his sweetheart,
Yeah.
but it happens to be a stone.
Really?
And a stone is, you know, a representative of Shiva sense of the lingam.
Yeah.
You know, they have these lingam stones. So in a sense, he's holding a physical representation of Shiva's lingam in his hand, you know, which is the creative aspect of the god.
Okay.
And that stone is in there the whole time, which he's holding on to.
Now, this thing, is this part of a Vedic thing? Does it go way back and so forth?
Yes, it does. I don't know the exact point of origin, but I'm sure they go back very, very far. Yeah. And we're probably more frequent.
And these people, they tend to be, as you said, a lot of them are naked. They're a lot of them seem to be not having much material.
You know,
yeah, and everything. Are they revered by the overall? Because most of your Hindu population are going to live normal lives, go around in Vespas and cars and live.
50,000 rupees worth of marigolds were thrown at the feet of these naked sadhus.
So the normal, unquote, normal Hindus or the normal people in India who live normal, unload life, have great reverence for these people. They don't see them as like
they're in awe
freaks.
Of them.
They don't see them as freaks.
No, but I mean, of course, you know, the world is changing very rapidly. You were talking to Professor Baum the last time I saw you, and he was saying that something like growth, what is it, national growth, you know, didn't exist until a couple of 100 years ago.
Yeah, well, there was
that people just
from the end of the Roman Empire till through the medieval ages.
Okay,
there
so
was
in any case,
zero
people left
growth,
a jacket and maybe Shakespeare left the bed that his wife slept in, or the blanket or something.
And in India you have, or if I mean in the subcontinent, if you have, or India, I don't know, they don't like to call it subcontinent, some people, but anyway, that you have a great deal of material poverty. That is grinding,
and you
I'm
also
told,
have
Ornette
a lot
told
of,
me.
there are also
and
great
is this
riches
is this
at the
a
same
company?
time.
Is this a company? The poverty? Is this an expression, or comes out of the poverty?
It's probably not unrelated, because the idea of being a sadhu or a wandering monk is to be non-materialistic and to exist on nothing. And begging is actually the idea to live only by the sake of your begging bowl, and people are enjoying to.
That's still there now.
Of course.
All right. Now, we don't have the comparable to that in the West.
Well, no, because everything here, the oldest thing we have in this country is the McDonald's symbol, which, as you know, is a yin-yang sign.
Yeah, well, they have McDonald's there, and they have material progress.
Well, they don't have
those kinds of things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
we don't have people going around with begging bowls and living a simple life.
But what I'm saying, it's only been in very few recent years that India has changed, and it takes a lot more to change all of India in 50 years, you know,
since the rise,
when we didn't have even television.
Yes, right.
Although we did have television, because I remember watching it in the form of laundry, a round laundry.
Yeah.
You know,
you think
laundromat screen.
Yeah, right. I remember.
Zenith. When I was 12. So
I can remember too.
That's
Larry.
a little more than 50 years ago, but so what I'm saying is that yes, if it's changing in India, the great many people have that reverence and understand that these people are carrying that tradition and faith, and they are very powerful.
Yeah, we don't have that in the West.
No, we
don't have a reverence for that.
No, the closest thing we have here to that we could talk about is hobos and beatniks, you know?
Yeah, hobos and beatniks, what I was going to say. And some of the beatniks and the hippies had a reverence for that sort of thing back in the 60s.
Yeah, but I don't know that if you, I think you find a lot of great things in the old-fashioned style of hobo, or even in whatever is the current equivalent in the homeless.
Yeah.
That's not totally different, but most of those people are much more unfortunate because they're, you know, they don't have something else to hang on to.
We don't revere that.
They don't have a sense of Bhagwan, of God, of all these other
and the society doesn't put
sadhanas and practices,
and the society
and
doesn't
yoga and all of these other things, and which are part of their life as well.
Right, and the society doesn't laden their path with the gardenia petals and so forth for the homeless and the poor in this country.
That's also true, but then again, they aren't really divine aspirants. They may be radical abusers, which is also true of the Nagas. That's part of their power.
Nagas?
The Nagas is a main order of sadhus. They're followers of Shiva, the naked Nagas. You know, Naga could mean something like the serpent power, you know, from the word for snake, which is Nag or Naga. But it's probably some other person told me really coming from Nanga, which means naked.
Yeah, okay. But what we're looking here is part of the Vedic or Hindu tradition. Is there because the subcontinent had Hindu and Muslim, you know, largely.
This is the
this is not Muslim. This is Hindu.
This is Hindu, and
Hindu fundamentalist. Would that be the wrong term to use?
No,
I don't know.
No, this is what you're seeing here in these sadhus I would call not fundamentalist.
Yeah.
That's baloney anyway to me.
You think?
And yes, in a general idea of what that word stands for.
But India's getting a nationalistic
No, but this
sense
is
from
not
Hindu.
what this is about. This is anti-orthodox.
Okay.
And if you can follow what that would mean to
I
you,
can't.
anti-orthodox.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's the difference between. I'm not here to denigrate the Pope, but I'm saying it's the difference between, you know, the Pope and the Church and the Vatican, and a simple act of, you know, Christian piety performed by some person, simple person in the country, you know, that has that faith. It's not the temple that makes the religion. It's it's the temple within. It's the flame, as they say.
And these traditions.
Wait a minute. There's a flame, they say in the Vedas, that exists in the heart of every man or woman or living thing, perhaps, which is about the size of a thumb. And that flame is the connection to everything, to the entire universe, to the divine, and among all creatures. That's a beautiful concept.
Yeah, we're in a different kind of realm, though. That's the East that Kipling was
I'm
talking
saying
about,
that's the real,
really?
that's the real temple, not you know, a pile of stones, not St. Patrick's or some temple in Benares, though those places have a certain sanctity conferred by them through practice and.
But it's ancient. It's ancient. It's tradition, and it's revered by the society in general. These people.
And when you asked me that, that's where I started saying certain things, which I'm trying to say. Of course, India is changing rapidly.
Right. So is all the world.
Time. So they didn't have McDonald's 25 years ago.
Right.
I mean, I don't know when the first one was there, and of course,
they got one.
You know, now they buy baby food from you know, the U.S. or is produced.
Yeah, the world's globalizing. Yeah,
and they never had things like that before. So of course, I mean, when Louis Malle made his film Phantom India, which I'm ashamed to say I never had a chance to see it completely. It's a 5-hour film, as I understand, and has a lot of great things. But the Indians hated that film, and they tried to ban it or whatever they did.
Yeah, it's a big
because
thing.
he was showing poverty and all kinds of other things that he saw with his real eyes in living India, and they would have preferred a film to be made showing, say, successful you know, a brain operation.
Yeah, right, exactly
in a
right.
well-run contemporary
it's like
hospital.
Tom Friedman has his book on the Lexus and the Olive Tree. He says we're going on a bullet train of technological development and progress, unquote. But and then there are people arguing, oh, who owns the olive tree? Tradition, and then the modernization and technology. That's a big theme on the world scale.
What's the most future thing you can think of from your dreams? I know what mine is.
Binary economics. That's the most futurist thing I can think about, where you get economic justice and democracy.
I imagine this dream, which we've seen in 1,000 films and, you know, short stories and whatever. But something that's about the end of the world, and we know that this is coming. And whether it's Superman or whoever, you know, there's a certain spaceship is being readied to go out there, and it can land
we're
somewhere.
coming to the end of the world.
And I tell you that if you wanted to be sure that something would come out right, I'd be sure that one of those Hindu sadhus was on that spaceship. Otherwise, people wouldn't live. Just like they need. I'm not comparing that guy to a monkey either, but when they put the monkey on and they see where the monkey's going, they know where to go because they've lost those instincts and that knowledge.
Well, that's all well and good, and it goes way the heck back. The Vedic traditions go way back in these spiritual traditions. Well, mine more go like with Bucky Fuller, and I think that I think we're coming to the end of the human experience.
Yeah, let's put him on the spaceship too.
Because, but it has to do with the thing that's changing is the technology is what's changing, and that's what perhaps could be liberating us, I would say, and that we've crossed from another thing you asked me, what would you like to see, is that we have actually transcended in a material sense the ontologic reality of scarcity that hasn't caught up with us yet. We're still suffering and allow ourselves to suffer. That's something I would have thought about. But this is really an incredible kind of thing you've done. You were there how long?
Well, on that trip, which was a short trip, I went specifically to go for the Mela, and I stayed for 3 months, which nobody can believe is actually how long it could be. But from the entrance of the first people to the last sweeper, it's definitely, you know, takes that much time.
You stayed right to the end.
Well,
right?
yeah, I stayed through it, and I got sunstroke in the middle. I didn't know why I was feeling so weird.
Hot.
I thought I was having a nervous breakdown, like I couldn't handle my ashes, so to speak. But I realized I had sunstroke, and that's what was. So I had to
sort of like
relax for 3 or 4 days and get back out there.
Yeah.
Because like
what's the setting? Is it hot and humid and whatever?
Well, it's of course it's very it's very, very hot.
Oy.
You know, it's
hotter than New York.
Kumbh Mela has to do with it's the Mela of Aquarius, so it's around the time. It's in the time of Aquarius when Jupiter enters Uranus, and that's when the Kumbh Mela takes place. But it was very hot there.
Okay, well, that's good to have in mind.
And at noon, you know what they say about mad dogs and Englishmen. But I was always out there bareheaded and looking for things, and looking for people and things to relate to,
and to getting,
on a one-on-one basis.
A lot of times these images are hard won, and it takes a spirit to go out and do it. It's really an artistic quest. Well, listen, one problem we haven't got time. We got another setup. We got another piece, right? So we could run that. We got another piece that's a little bit further into the film. We want to run that.
Yes, okay.
So if we could set that up in the studio, have another piece out of this incredible film, Kings with Straw Mats by Ira Cohen, who we're talking with. Your pleasure. Set it up. Let's run that and make sure we get that piece of
beautiful editing job by Morgan Harris, without which the film could never have been completed.
And again,
he's someone who saw the film when he was 16 and wanted to work with me on it. When he was 28, which was almost the same as the 12-year cycle of the Kumbh Mela, he turned up and said, "Come, let's do it now."
You see, these things can just happen. Yeah. These things just happen. That guy comes with that thing. Okay, here.
The strategic diamond, the throne of compressed bone in the unsure dark, where only light can forgive and your mind is signed. If you keep your zipper open, you will stay cool. With Baba so-and-so, 3 roses and a leaf, 1 rose for the thief. Outside the tent of the 18 mothers, a swirling cosmic sound stays constant. Not to forget the previous night's encounter with Kali on the bridge. It was fantastic. When I flashed her, she ran at me with her iron spear, topped with peacock feathers, and forced me to my knees before letting me pass. Don't disregard the gentle sweep of a saffron-colored turban or the elegant use of an old sweater.
Very difficult to maintain whiteness. Yes. Yes, white light is the protective light.
Known as the naked Nagas, many still wear no clothing at all. Even today in modern cities, they can be seen walking naked through the streets or sitting dressed only in ashes. Most are known by their saffron or ochre-colored cloth and the Rudraksh beads they wear in their hair or around their necks.
This is the last shot, and then it fades.
My Lord.
So
It's like a combination of Woodstock and Mardi Gras and so forth, all rolled into one. But you said literally millions of people?
Yeah, over 10 million people are come
over
to
the
these
course of how long a period
simple
of time?
pilgrims come from on ox cart, on foot, by train, every way they can. And they come and they do certain special things when they come there.
Have you ever been to a carnival?
Have their head shaved.
Is it like carnival? Have you ever been?
Well, I've never been to one of the famous
But I mean,
carnivals.
there's 10
I was at
million
Woodstock.
Yeah, I was at Woodstock. I was at Woodstock. That seemed like an awful lot of folk. There was 500,000.
Yeah, but this 10 million people, they organize everything, including without partisans.
Yeah, right.
They work it out much better, but every once in a while there is an unfortunate tragedy, a bridge collapses or something. I'm talking about, every mailer over years and years, not every time they even have one.
Yeah, but they have this in a town, and I mean, they know there's going to be 10 million people. That's huge.
Yeah.
Humanity coming.
Well, it's worked out. Just
things sort of. Is it like Woodstock?
Food
People
and
get fed
things.
somehow.
Yeah,
they have,
anyone who doesn't have
the
food
diggers
can
are
get
there
fed.
or something, or it just
well,
happens.
It's all
or?
just done through, in the life of India.
Yeah.
And those last men you see there that have these big red, headlights on their foreheads.
Yes.
And dressed in white. Those are Vairagis.
What's that?
Which is followers of Rama. Also includes the Krishna followers as another main group of holy men that attend the festival. The other being Nagas, and then there are certain other sects like the Udasi and so forth, and the Nath Babas, but they come under a general, more Shivite line.
Okay, I'm not all that.
Well, I'm just saying that the
good.
two main divisions are Nagas and Vairagis
of
the different religious fraternities and orders.
And these are religious. This is a gathering that is religious and sacred in its core.
Yeah, completely.
But they also then this will end. They go for weeks or whatever. It ends. Then they will go back to other parts of India.
Yes, wherever they ordinarily go.
I've not been to India, so bear with me. You're walking through India, you're walking through New York, you would have in Bombay or in Calcutta or something, these people are walking around like they are in this film?
Well, somewhere, but not...
Do they just blend into the society?
Yeah, they kind
of
blend in, and they tend to be in less urban places.
Yeah,
where they're on. I mean, this is a pilgrimage that happens on every 12 years, and then people also every 6 years will also attend that quite largely, but not, in this the same way as the 12-year mailer. And even on any year, there probably are people there. I don't go and check it out and see how many are there, but there are always some people there.
Are these people do they tend to be, you have this caste system in India, which is hard for me to understand. You have the untouchable. Are these people from all castes, or is this of a particular caste?
When you join these religious orders, you're going out of the caste system into something else. It's a different kind of thing where the caste trip doesn't apply.
Would there be Brahmins that would be part of this people, or does it tend to be?
No, it's everybody can be in there, from the poorest orphan with whatever caste to the highest Swami or university professor.
They can be.
Join.
Do they?
They do. In fact, the tradition would say, really, that you live out your life in a certain way. You take on the duties of a young person. Then you get married. You have family. You take care of older people. Your kids grow up, and then when you get to be at the last ashrama of your life, you go off by yourself, and you join this kind of group, or live as a sadhu in some holy way. That's an old prescription. But there are many people who join up for different reasons at any point in their life, and a lot of young disenfranchised people who might choose that, enter into that order. And then, of course, I mean, it's not just showbiz as it looks like in my film, but it's a whole way of life. And all the people there, I mean, the leaders and the swamis are people who could rival philosophers in some other university. Not every one of them.
But they would probably be thoughtful, learned men and that sort of thing. But if you're in a family, let's say you're in a family with you got diplomatic people that have been in the family, and you could go into the diplomatic corps, and the son comes home and says, father and mother, I've decided instead of going into diplomatic corps and being an ambassador in Washington, I'm going to be a sadhu and wander around.
Yeah, I don't know.
They would say, yoy. They would say, good.
Well, no, they probably wouldn't want you to.
Like, I'm going to be a rabbi. I'm going to be a priest.
I mean, I can't answer for those situations.
Yeah.
It depends who it is and what's the situation. But you know, to a certain degree, in modern India, people who have the same goals as people have in Western countries
and those goals are largely
have been
secular.
influenced, you know, in some other way, would perhaps look down on a lot of these people as well.
What
but the general public, and in that sense I mean the overpowering millions of India, poor people, Rajasthanis, people coming from the country and everything else, are even in awe of them still.
So if they, that's what I was getting at, is this something that has provided or taking an assumption that we're going to get some material progress and there's not going to be the grinding poverty confronting the human condition and so forth? As the condition lessens and lessens, will these things, do you think, disappear and people go into a more normal secular life?
I have no idea.
So what is your sense of it? I mean,
what's my sense of it?
Is it tied into the poverty?
I think that you know, there is some idea in India and elsewhere in the world of a golden age and then another age and then the Kali Yuga, which is the end of everything. You know, they say signs of the Kali Yuga, you know, among which would be that people don't even cook their own food. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, it does.
You know, so I don't know, is that a plus? Because you can actually have it delivered from, you know, a pizza place or any
Chinese
restaurant
takeout,
or, you know, or whatever.
Or they're going to have these robots now. They're going to have these robot little things that are going to fly through the air and do
I mean, it's very convenient. I don't find it disturbing if I want to do that, but I'm saying that just the concept of, you know, what you put into the food, how you deal with it. Once Ganesh Baba, who was a guru of mine, said, don't cut those vegetables, throw them in whole. Somebody was cooking. When he said that, I heard, bong. You know, it seemed to make sense. Everything is enclosed within. You cut it, it's all the energy is escaping somehow. But just simple things like that. So I don't think that the society we're heading for, you know, or the world that we're moving into, which is some other kind of intergalactic science fiction fantasy or Armageddon or whatever you want to see it as, I mean, I think the need for these kind of people and their knowledge will only become greater. Whether or not they're going to be around, you know, and they all smoke. The Shiva followers smoke hash, and they still
Hashish,
yes, and they still can be given that by the king of Nepal when they come to celebrate the night of Shiva. But lately, you know, they're told to watch it where they smoke. You know.
Yeah. Things change. Well, it's an incredible film, an incredible thing. It's your pleasure to talk with Ira Cohen. Really a pleasure to welcome you. Sorry we ran out of time. We can go on talking. 16 hours
but
easy,
don't forget
Ira.
you're an honorary Akashic agent.
All right, you're an Akashic agent. So it's your pleasure. We welcome you to tune in again next week. Coming back then. Ira, once again, thanks very much for all the work and for the film and for coming in.
And thanks for your face, which I got.
You got the face on the Akashic camera, right? The Akashic camera. We'll be back again next week. That's it for now. Thanks once again, Ira. See you next time. And what a film. Really good. It's distributed by
Mystic Fire, and it should be around, and you can ask for it in any video store.
Video store, we put a number up at the end so people can get in touch with it if they want. It's a heck of a film. Congratulations on it. Okay, well, so we got a lot in, and we're just about, just almost
Who picked the flowers?
Well, aren't they lovely? Those are just deluxe plastic, you know. No, they're constant, right?
Yeah, well, that's good.
It puts a little color into this.
But